Life is not merely a collection of events, circumstances, or situations that happen to us. It is the story we create through our responses to those events. Every person experiences joy, pain, success, failure, love, and loss. Yet two individuals going through similar situations can live entirely different lives based on one crucial factor: their reactions. This is why it is often said that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond. Reactions define the quality of life because they determine whether we live with peace or turmoil, with clarity or confusion, with joy or bitterness. Consider a simple example. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. One reacts with anger, despair, and self-blame, falling into a spiral of negativity that makes it even harder to recover. The other, while still feeling disappointment, chooses to respond with calm acceptance and curiosity, seeing it as an opportunity to start anew or to learn something from the experience. The external event is the same, but the quality of their lives diverges sharply because of their different reactions. This illustrates the truth that our inner state is shaped not by what happens, but by how we process and react to it. Reactions often come from unconscious conditioning. If someone insults us, our first impulse might be to fight back or feel wounded. If a plan fails, our instinct may be to complain or blame others. But these automatic reactions are rarely helpful. They only add more pain to an already difficult moment. When we react unconsciously, we hand over the steering wheel of our lives to circumstances and other people. In contrast, when we choose our responses consciously, we take back control and begin to shape life from a place of awareness. The quality of our reactions also influences our relationships. Words spoken in anger or judgment may destroy trust and closeness that took years to build. On the other hand, a calm and patient reaction can heal misunderstandings and create deeper bonds. Imagine a friend who disappoints you. If you react harshly, you might damage the friendship. If you pause, breathe, and respond with understanding, you preserve not only the relationship but also your own inner peace. In this way, your reactions determine whether your life is filled with harmony or conflict. Our health and well-being are also deeply tied to how we react. Stress does not come solely from external pressures, but from the way we interpret and respond to them. A person who reacts to challenges with constant worry and tension invites anxiety and physical illness. Another person who reacts with acceptance and resilience maintains a sense of balance, even in hardship. Science has shown that our nervous system responds instantly to our reactions, releasing stress hormones when we are angry or fearful, and promoting healing when we remain calm. Thus, the body itself confirms that the quality of life is inseparable from the quality of our responses. Reactions are not trivial. They are the builders of our inner world. Over time, repeated reactions form habits, and those habits shape character. A person who reacts with bitterness becomes bitter. A person who reacts with gratitude becomes joyful. In this sense, every reaction is like a brushstroke on the canvas of our lives. One moment of patience, one choice to forgive, one act of understanding can color our days with peace. To live a meaningful life, we must learn to observe before reacting. The pause between an event and our response is where our true power lies. In that space, we can choose presence over impulse, wisdom over anger, and peace over chaos. When we cultivate this awareness, our life becomes less about controlling what happens and more about mastering how we respond. And in that mastery, the quality of life is elevated regardless of external circumstances. Ultimately, reactions define life quality because they shape not just how we experience the present moment, but also who we become in the long journey of life. Unconscious reactions are those automatic responses that rise out of us before we even realize what is happening. They are rooted in old conditioning, past experiences, egoic patterns, and unresolved emotions. These reactions seem harmless in the moment, but they often set in motion a chain of events that trap us in cycles of suffering. When we react without awareness, we do not break free from these patterns. Instead, we repeat them over and over. Like being stuck in a loop that limits our growth and happiness. This is why unconscious reactions create cycles that shape the trajectory of our lives in ways we may not even recognize. Take, for example, anger. If someone criticizes you and you immediately lash out, your anger may provoke their anger in return. Soon, both sides are locked in a battle of words or actions. This reaction and counteraction strengthens resentment and mistrust. Over time, these repeated encounters form a cycle of conflict, not just with one person but across many relationships. Each situation feels unique, but the underlying pattern is the same. Criticism leads to anger, anger leads to more conflict, and the cycle continues. Until we bring awareness to the reaction, we remain trapped. Fear works in a similar way. When we unconsciously react to challenges with fear, we shrink back from opportunities. This avoidance then reinforces our belief that we are incapable, which fuels even more fear the next time we face a challenge. What begins as a single fearful reaction grows into a cycle of hesitation and self-doubt, limiting our potential and creating a life smaller than what we are capable of living. Unconscious reactions also thrive in the ego's need to defend itself. The ego interprets situations as threats to its identity, so it reacts impulsively to protect its sense of self. If someone disagrees with your opinion, the ego may feel attacked, and you react with defensiveness or hostility. The other person then feels unheard, and they too react defensively. This cycle of ego-driven reactions fuels arguments, division, and separation. The irony is that the situation could have been met with calm acceptance, but the unconscious need to defend the ego perpetuates disharmony. What makes unconscious reactions so powerful is that they rarely stop at a single moment. They ripple outward into every area of life. A stressful morning reaction, such as snapping at someone, can influence your mood for the entire day, leading to further impatience, irritability, and poor choices. One unconscious reaction multiplies into many, creating a cycle that shapes the quality of your experiences. If unchecked, these cycles become long-term patterns, influencing the kind of relationships we attract, the opportunities we pursue, and the way we perceive the world itself. Breaking free from these cycles requires awareness. Awareness interrupts the automatic chain of reaction by creating space between the trigger and the response. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. In that pause, you observe your emotions rising, and rather than feeding them, you allow them to dissolve. This breaks the momentum of the cycle. For instance, if someone criticizes you and you resist the impulse to retaliate, the cycle of conflict ends with you. The other person may still continue their behavior, but your conscious non-reaction denies the cycle the fuel it needs to continue. The truth is that unconscious reactions are not destiny, they are learned habits. And just as they were learned, they can be unlearned. Each time we notice our reactions and choose differently, we weaken the cycle. Over time, awareness replaces reactivity, and cycles of anger, fear, and defensiveness give way to cycles of peace, resilience, and compassion. In this way, the unconscious cycles that once trapped us become opportunities for awakening. Unconscious reactions create cycles because they repeat themselves through our relationships, thoughts, and choices. Left unexamined, they can make life feel heavy and repetitive, as though we are stuck reliving the same struggles. But with awareness, the chain is broken, and what was once a cycle of suffering becomes a pathway to freedom. Every conscious response is an act of liberation, a way of stepping out of the loop and into a life shaped not by unconscious patterns, but by presence and clarity. Cycles of unconscious reaction can feel like prisons, repeating the same patterns of anger, fear, or defensiveness without offering any real resolution. Yet within this repetition lies the possibility of freedom. That freedom is found in presence, the state of being fully aware of the moment as it is, without judgment or resistance. Presence acts like a light shining into the darkness of old habits. When awareness is present, the chain of reaction is interrupted, and the cycle that once seemed unbreakable begins to dissolve. Presence works because it gives us a pause. In that pause, we are no longer ruled by automatic impulses. Imagine someone insults you. Normally, the mind would trigger an immediate response to defend, attack, or withdraw. But if you are present, you notice the rising emotion without letting it control you. You may feel the sting of the words, but instead of reacting, you watch it, breathe, and allow it to pass. That simple act of observation is powerful enough to break the momentum of the cycle. By not adding fuel to the fire dies down. When we are present, we are not dragging the past into the moment, nor are we projecting fear of the future. We are rooted in what is real right now. This grounded awareness prevents old wounds and stories from dictating our response. For instance, if a colleague criticizes your work, the mind may interpret it through past experiences of failure and react defensively. But with presence, you see the comment as it is, just words spoken in this moment. You respond with clarity, perhaps by calmly addressing the issue or by letting it go entirely. In either case, you do not carry forward the cycle of defensiveness or resentment. Presence also changes the energy we bring into interactions. Cycles of reaction are contagious. Anger breeds anger, fear spreads fear, and defensiveness triggers defensiveness. But presence is equally contagious. When one person remains calm, grounded, and aware, it can disarm the cycle of reaction in others. A calm presence in the midst of conflict often softens hostility, creating space for understanding. In this way, presence not only breaks personal cycles, but also transforms the dynamics of relationships and communities. What makes presence so effective is that it connects us to a deeper part of ourselves. The awareness that observes without getting entangled. Instead of being the anger, you become the one who notices anger. Instead of being the fear, you become the one who sees fear arising. This shift creates distance between you and the reaction, which weakens its grip. Over time, repeated practice of presence reduces the power of old triggers. Situations that once provoked intense reactions begin to lose their charge because you no longer meet them unconsciously. Presence also breaks the cycle of inner suffering. Many of us live in cycles of worry, regret, or self-criticism. These cycles are fed by thoughts about what has already happened or what might happen next. But when you return to the present, you realize that in this moment there is no problem. The mind may still try to pull you back into the loop, but presence keeps you anchored. Each time you choose to return to awareness, you weaken the cycle of thought-based suffering and open yourself to peace. Breaking cycles with presence is not about forcing change. It is about noticing what is and allowing space for a conscious response. This practice requires patience because the old cycles will try to reassert themselves. But with each moment of presence, the hold of unconscious reaction weakens. Eventually, what once felt like an endless loop of reactivity gives way to a new patterns. Awareness, clarity, and choice. Presence is the key that unlocks the prison of reaction. It reminds us that we are not bound to repeat the past, nor are we trapped in fear of the future. In presence, every moment becomes new, fresh, and alive. And in that freshness lies the power to break any cycle, no matter how deeply ingrained. Presence does not only change how we respond, it changes the entire trajectory of our lives, turning cycles of suffering into opportunities for peace, growth, and freedom. Freedom is often thought of as something external, like the absence of restrictions or the ability to do whatever one desires. Yet true freedom is not about circumstances outside of us, it is about the state of our inner world. Awareness is the doorway to that freedom. When we live without awareness, we are prisoners of our own thoughts, emotions, and unconscious reactions. We are pushed and pulled by external events, trapped in cycles of fear, anger, or desire. But when awareness is present, a profound shift happens. We begin to see these patterns instead of being controlled by them. This seeing itself is liberation. Awareness frees us from identification with the mind. The mind produces constant chatter, judgments, worries, comparisons, regrets. Left unchecked, this stream of thoughts becomes our reality. We feel that we are the anxiety, the anger, the doubt. But awareness introduces space. It allows us to notice the thoughts without merging with them. For example, if a thought arises saying, "I am not good enough," awareness recognizes it simply as a thought, not as truth. In that recognition, we are no longer enslaved by it. This is freedom, the ability to observe without being consumed. Awareness also liberates us from the weight of the past and the burden of the future. Much of human suffering comes from replaying old wounds or anticipating future problems. Without awareness, we carry the past into every moment, reacting to situations not as they are but as echoes of yesterday's pain. Similarly, we project our fears into the future, creating anxiety about events that may never happen. But when we bring awareness to the present, we realize that this moment is free of those burdens. In the now, the past has no power, and the future has not yet arrived. Awareness keeps us rooted in the only place where freedom is possible, the present. On a practical level, awareness gives us freedom of choice. Imagine being in a heated argument. Without awareness, you react instantly, perhaps saying hurtful words you later regret. But with awareness, you notice the rising anger before it takes over. You pause, breathe, and choose a different response. This choice is not suppression but conscious direction. It is the freedom to act instead of merely reacting. Over time, this conscious choosing transforms relationships, bringing more harmony and less conflict. Awareness also frees us from the tyranny of the ego. The ego thrives on comparison, competition, and separation. It wants to prove itself right, superior, or important. When we are unaware, we live according to the ego's demands, constantly seeking validation or fearing rejection. But awareness shines a light on the ego's illusions. It shows us that we are not the roles we play, the titles we hold, or the possessions we own. We are the awareness itself, the spacious field in which all experiences arise and pass. This recognition loosens the ego's grip, allowing us to live with humility, compassion, and authenticity. Moreover, awareness frees us from inner resistance. Much of our suffering is not caused by situations themselves, but by our resistance to them. We wish things were different, and in that resistance, we create pain. Awareness allows us to see and accept what is, without adding layers of judgment. Acceptance does not mean passivity, it means we stop fighting reality. From that place of acceptance, real change becomes possible because we are no longer blinded by resistance. Ultimately, awareness is freedom because it reconnects us with our true nature. Beneath the layers of thought, emotion, and conditioning lies a stillness that is untouched by circumstance. Awareness is the doorway to that stillness. When we live with awareness, we discover that freedom is not something we achieve in the future. It is something we access here and now by simply being fully conscious of this moment. In that awareness, life unfolds with greater ease, clarity, and joy, and we realize that the freedom we long for has always been within us. Every life is like a canvas, and each day we hold the brush in our hands. What paints the picture of our existence is not merely the events that occur, but the way we respond to them. Reactions are like brushstrokes, sometimes bold, sometimes subtle, but always shaping the image of our destiny. With every response, whether it comes from anger, patience, fear, or compassion, we add color and texture to the canvas of our lives. Over time, these brushstrokes accumulate, forming the masterpiece that becomes our destiny. When we react unconsciously, our brushstrokes are often harsh and chaotic. An angry outburst here, a fearful withdrawal there, a defensive comment somewhere else. All of these strokes create a picture marked by confusion, disharmony, and pain. Though each stroke may feel small in the moment, together they form patterns that define the direction of our lives. For instance, if a person constantly reacts with suspicion and mistrust, they may create a life surrounded by broken relationships. The canvas becomes one of isolation and bitterness, painted not by external events but by repeated reactions. On the other hand, when we bring awareness to our reactions, our strokes become deliberate and conscious. Choosing patience instead of irritation, kindness instead of hostility, or calm instead of panic creates a very different image. The canvas begins to fill with harmony, strength, and beauty. Each conscious response contributes to a destiny shaped not by impulse but by wisdom. A life painted with compassion and awareness radiates peace, both inwardly and outwardly, influencing not only our own journey, but also the lives of those around us. The metaphor of brushstrokes reminds us that no single reaction defines the entire canvas. One moment of anger does not ruin everything, just as one kind act does not complete the masterpiece. What matters is the overall pattern created by repeated choices. Destiny is not fixed, it is a living painting, constantly being shaped. Every new moment gives us another opportunity to pick up the brush and choose a different stroke. Even if the past is filled with dark or chaotic strokes, the future remains open to lighter, more conscious colors. Reactions are powerful because they ripple beyond the immediate moment. A harsh word spoken in haste can echo for years, damaging trust or wounding hearts. Conversely, a calm and thoughtful response can inspire forgiveness, healing, and connection. In this sense, each stroke influences not only our own canvas, but also the canvases of others. Our reactions weave into the larger collective painting of humanity, contributing either to cycles of conflict or to cycles of peace. Destiny is not something that suddenly appears at the end of our lives. It is something we are painting right now, with every choice and every reaction. Think of a leader who consistently responds with courage and vision. Their brushstrokes create a legacy that inspires generations. Think of a parent who reacts to challenges with love and patience. Their brushstrokes shape the destiny of their children. In each case, reactions accumulate into patterns that define not just individual lives, but the lives of many. The beauty of this truth is that we are never powerless. No matter what circumstances we face, we always hold the brush. We may not control what happens, but we can always choose how to respond. In that choice lies our greatest creative power. Each moment is a blank space waiting for a stroke. Will it be a stroke of anger or forgiveness, of despair or resilience, of fear or courage? The decision is ours, and with it, we determine the quality and direction of our destiny. To live with this awareness is to realize that life is an art, and we are the artists. Our reactions are not trivial. They are the very strokes that define the image of who we become. With mindfulness, compassion, and presence, we can paint a destiny that reflects beauty, wisdom, and peace. And when the canvas of life is complete, it will tell the story not of what happened to us, but of how we chose to respond. With each reaction, one brushstroke at a time, life often presents us with moments that trigger immediate emotional responses: anger, fear, excitement, or defensiveness. Our instinct is to react instantly, almost as if a button has been pressed and we have no choice but to respond. Yet the truth is that our greatest power does not lie in the reaction itself, but in the space that exists before it. Power lies in the pause, the small but profound gap between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. In that pause, we reclaim control of our lives, step out of unconscious patterns, and create the possibility of a wiser, more conscious response. The pause interrupts the chain of automatic reactivity. When someone insults you, your mind may rush to defend itself, to retaliate, or to withdraw in hurt. Without awareness, this reaction happens instantly, often leaving regret in its wake. But if you pause, if you take even a single breath before responding, you give yourself the gift of space. In that space, you can observe your rising emotions, notice your thoughts, and ask yourself whether reacting impulsively will serve you or harm you. The pause breaks the cycle of unconscious reaction and replaces it with conscious choice. The pause is powerful because it gives us perspective. In the heat of the moment, everything feels urgent and absolute. A harsh word seems like an attack on our worth. A setback feels like the end of the world. But when we pause, we step back and see the situation with greater clarity. We realize that an insult is just words, that a setback is temporary, and that our peace does not need to depend on external events. This shift in perspective allows us to respond from strength rather than weakness, from calm rather than chaos. The pause also protects our relationships. Many arguments escalate not because of what was said initially, but because of the quick, defensive reactions that follow. A pause allows us to listen more deeply, to understand rather than to attack. It creates room for empathy, compassion, and patience. When you pause before speaking, you often find that the angry words you were about to say are not necessary. Instead, you can choose words that heal rather than hurt, words that build bridges instead of walls. Over time, this simple habit of pausing strengthens trust and deepens connections. On a personal level, the pause shields us from unnecessary suffering. So much of our inner turmoil comes not from events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves in reaction to them. If plans change unexpectedly, the unconscious reaction might be frustration or anxiety. But in the pause, we can catch ourselves and recognize that resisting reality only creates more pain. By accepting what is, we free ourselves from unnecessary struggle. The pause becomes a doorway to peace, even in difficult circumstances. Spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle remind us that the pause is where presence lives. In that moment of stillness, we touch the awareness that is deeper than thought or emotion. We discover that we are not the anger, not the fear, not the story in our minds. We are the observer, the silent awareness behind it all. From this place of presence, every response becomes infused with clarity, wisdom, and compassion. Power lies in the pause because the pause gives us freedom. It frees us from being puppets of our conditioning, from being prisoners of the past, from being slaves to the ego's demands. It reminds us that we always have a choice, no matter how small the moment may seem. By practicing the pause, by pausing to breathe, to notice, to reflect, we transform not only our reactions but also the trajectory of our lives. In that brief silence lies the power to create peace, to preserve love, and to shape a destiny rooted in awareness. The pause may seem small, but within it lies the greatest strength we will ever know.